causing more problems that cause destruction, that increase the rate of your aging in both your body, your skin, and your brain. Okay, so inflammation literally leads to you aging more rapidly.
The information shared on the Rethink It podcast is intended for educational and informational purposes only and should not be taken as medical advice. While Dr. Sande is a licensed medical provider, the content of this podcast is not a substitute for professional medical diagnosis, treatment, or advice specific to your individual health needs. Always consult with your healthcare provider before making any decisions related to your health or medical care.
Welcome back to the Rethink It podcast. I'm so glad you guys are back here with me today. As you can look behind me, if you are on the YouTube streaming channel and seeing this, we are doing some transition here in our studio that also doubles as my office where I see clients. This is actually, I have all my references here. I'm very sad to see them go, but I'm going to give it my best try and bring us up to date and make us look real professional. So when you're watching, you're like, this is such a pretty, I enjoy this. It's visually pleasing to me. So I hope that you enjoy the progress, and we'll throw you some time-lapse videos, give you a sneak peek behind the curtain to see how all that went. The failures that we experienced in the process and all of the fun. But I'm so glad you are back here today with our podcast. This is the podcast where we challenge what you think you know about brain health, longevity, and healing. We don't chase symptoms here, and we don't hand out quick fix band-aids. We ask better questions. We rethink pharmaceuticals as your first answer, and we don't throw them out with the bathwater, okay? We explore the cutting-edge science, and most importantly, we empower you to partner with your body's natural, innate healing wisdom. And today, we are tackling a season of life that sneaks up on all of us. I know you 20-year-olds might be going, I'm never going to be old like you, but midlife happens to us all. So whether you're a woman entering perimenopause or a man heading into andropause, yes, we're even talking about the men today. You may just be noticing that your body just doesn't bounce back like it used to. There's a hidden fire that you might not even know is smoldering in your brain, and it is inflammation. So what happens when our hormones shift? Let me give you a little bit of science background. We're talking about our hormones. I'm going to talk about the top 3, not all of them, because we have lots of hormones. The word hormone just means messenger signaler. So we have lots of them: testosterone and DHEA, pregnenolone, progesterone, thyroid, thyroxine, epinephrine, norepinephrine. They're all hormones. But today we're going to focus on estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. So when we talk about estrogen, it increases the thing you need to know about it, the effect it has on our brain, is that estrogen increases the expression of something called BDNF. If you've been listening any length of time here at this podcast, you've heard me talk about BDNF. It's called brain-derived neurotrophic factor. And pop quiz, if you've been listening, because I say it all the time, what is the best way to raise your BDNF? That would be exercise. Running, walking, lifting weights. That is the best, most powerful, most direct way to raise BDNF. You can't even match a supplement to the degree that you raise BDNF by moving your body. So estrogen increases the expression of it. And why does that matter? Because BDNF helps the nerves to stay healthy and resilient. So it keeps your neuroplasticity intact, and it keeps you having nice brain volume so your brain doesn't shrink. Okay, progesterone, on the other hand, and men have progesterone as well, and they actually have small amount of estrogen. Progesterone has been shown to modulate GABA receptors. And we've talked about that before. GABA, think about just when you think about GABA, because that's what GABA receptors do. They give you a calming sensation in the nervous system. They stop glutamate production, which is excitatory. They calm everything down. So progesterone, if you're low on that, you're going to start feeling anxious and cranky and angry and irritable, and And you can guess which hormone goes away in menopause. Testosterone, on the other hand, and women both have testosterone, just in different ratios. It helps to regulate something called nitric oxide. And we talk about that a lot when we talk about breath work, because when you breathe nice and deep, and especially through your nose, you improve your release of nitric oxide, and that improves blood flow to the brain and nutrient delivery to the brain. So here we have 3 hormones. Each does a little something different. Estrogen boosts your BDNF, your progesterone boosts your GABA, and your testosterone improves nitric oxide and blood flow to your brain. Huge impacts on the brain, huge. So when we're talking to the women in our lives, hello ladies, women, as we enter perimenopause, which can actually happen kind of early in your maybe late 30s. Most people actually say around 35. Most practitioners, medical doctors, everybody I've read that has more degrees and gone to more prestigious universities and done more research than me, they all say around 35 we start seeing a rapid change in progesterone. And that would signal your first stage of kind of that perimenopause. I'm sorry, 35-year-olds who were like, I am nowhere near perimenopause, but I hate to tell you, the studies say otherwise. Estrogen and progesterone during this time, which for decades acted kind of like your natural anti-inflammatory, your fire extinguishers, suddenly begin to fluctuate, and they fluctuate wildly and eventually decline. Without progesterone and estrogen, your microglia, those immune cells in your brain, are more likely to stay switched on, meaning they're like, there's a problem, and they release inflammatory cytokines within the brain. So that's a problem for your brain. For men, testosterone is the problem. We start to see some testosterone decline around 30 to 35 years old. Can you believe that? 30 to 35 years old, and it's roughly 1% per year. Lower testosterone in men means that they have less activation of their androgen receptors in their brain, which actually protects the neurons, those nerve cells, from oxidative damage, and it helps keep the nerves, the synapses really nice and plastic. So that neuroplasticity that we have at a young age, that has a lot to do with testosterone. So I want to talk about something that is, if you are in the holistic space and you're paying attention and you're watching all the Instagram people with inflammation content and aging and anti-aging and holistic yada yada yada, you have heard the term inflammaging. Inflammaging. If not, let me introduce you. Inflammaging. It is why midlife is the tipping point. So what is it? Inflammaging, I'm talking about inflammation and aging combined into one word. Inflammaging. It's characterized by this increased level of things that are these little inflammatory messengers. Particularly, there's a few that show up a lot. You can test people and you can see it when you do blood work. Interleukin-6, TNF-alpha, CRP. These all rise as the sex hormones start to decline. And these inflammatory molecules end up disrupting your blood-brain barrier, making the brain more vulnerable to toxins and pathogens. So as our hormones get all wonky, now our blood-brain barrier isn't protecting the brain as well. And now when you're exposed to toxicity, you don't handle it as well. And on top of that, if you're a woman with progesterone has a huge impact on our body's ability to rest and digest and move toxins out. So as your progesterone goes down, your toxicity goes up. So when we think about inflammaging, so back to the inflammation, I just had to throw that piece in there. It has nothing to do with inflammaging. But inflammaging is basically the background static in your body's communication system. It's kind of always there, and over time it interferes with every signal. So hormones normally suppress things like NF-kappa beta. This is like this inflammatory one of like the interleukin 6, the TNF alpha. These are inflammatory signals. NF kappa beta is one of those hallmark markers of it's a key switch for the inflammation gene expression. That's what's so important about it. So where you got these little signals, interleukin, TNF alpha, CRP, these type of things are like these are pro-inflammatory messengers. NF kappa beta is the switch that turns on gene expression that lets inflammation turn it on. So some genes you don't want turned on. and honestly, I have to say this because it's going to drive me crazy if I actually leave you with turn on the genes, because all your genes are there. They're always on. What we try to do with lifestyle modification and everything we do here is not necessarily turn on and off genes, because you can't turn them off. What you do is you dial up the volume, or you dial down the volume of certain genes depending on what you're doing. And so what NF kappa beta is doing is it's dialing up the inflammation gene expression. Okay. And when when the suppression weakens, when inflammation suppression weakens in midlife, inflammation becomes sort of a self-perpetuating cycle. It just keeps on going. You can't turn it off. Studies actually show that CRP levels can almost double between the ages of 40 to 60 years old, even in healthy, quote, healthy adults. And in the brain, this inflammation interferes with something really important called glucose metabolism. It's a major reason why Alzheimer's is sometimes called type 3 diabetes. Something else that you might have come across if you're in the holistic space. And it's a measure of your aging. So when we talk about inflammaging, we're talking about inflammation causing more problems that cause destruction, that increase the rate of your aging in both your body, your skin, and your brain. Okay, so inflammation literally leads to aging more rapidly. How we measure that is, there are multiple ways to measure it, but one that's very common and popular is measuring the length of your telomeres. So telomeres, they can be long or short. If they're short, your life expectancy is declining. Young people have nice long telomeres. So let's cover a little bit about the science behind telomeres. Telomeres they shorten with every cell division, but the enzyme telomerase can lengthen them. So you got an enzyme that will actually help lengthen your telomeres. So what are they actually? Like, what are telomeres? I'm just going to dig a little deep for the science, then we'll give you a kind of a big picture. Telomeres are the protective caps on the ends of your chromosomes. They're kind of like the plastic tips on your shoelaces that keep them from fraying. And they're made up of repeating sequences of DNA. And there's very specific sequences and their associated proteins. So we're not going to go into the specific sequence, but they're made up of specific repeating sequences, and they sit on the ends of the chromosome. They protect the actual genetic code from being damaged or lost during cell division. So every time the cell divides, your DNA needs a copy, but the enzymes that do this can't copy the very last bit of the chromosomes. Those telomeres act as like a disposable buffer, so essentially the genes aren't cut off. So what you need to know in midlife is that estrogen boosts telomere activity while testosterone reduces oxidative stress, and both of those help preserve telomere length. So when your estrogen declines, so does your telomerase activity, which means now we're getting shorter telomeres. And as the testosterone declines, your oxidative stress goes up and your telomerase activity goes down and your telomeres shorten, which means that you are aging. Okay, that's just a sign. It's just a measurable sign of aging. And we can actually there are tests to test all that. So you can test it if you want to. But like I said, they are like the plastic tips on your shoelaces and protect those DNA ends. And once they fray, the cell is more likely to age or die. So stress, inflammation, and poor diet accelerate telomerase shortening, while hormone balance and exercise and polyphenol-rich foods paleo-taro diet, can slow and in some cases even reverse the process. And so you actually lengthen your telomeres. So this is how you get these people. I was this guy recently because my sons were, we were all having this conversation in-house at our house around the kitchen table about aging and lifestyle and all the things. And my adult children are starting to see the light, and mom's not crazy. And they're starting to care about these things. And I showed them, I can't remember the guy's name. I wish I could put him up here and add them, but I will find it and put him in the show notes. But he is a gentleman who is 62, but his telomere length is that of a 32-year-old man. He looks like he's 32 years old. So how is he doing that? Major lifestyle enhancement, the things I teach you here on this podcast. But let's get back. Okay, Sandra's going to get right back here in the middle, back in the lane, and talking about brain health. I can talk all day. And I hope you guys are following me. Lifestyle changes in midlife are not just, the point is, they're not just about feeling better. They're literally about the age of your biological age trajectory. And they have a huge impact on your brain. Okay. So some interesting statistics about Alzheimer's in men versus women. And we'll dig into this a little bit and talk about why. Women's Alzheimer's risk jumps drastically after menopause because the brain loses its estrogen protection over that glucose metabolism in that hippocampus, the memory center. Men experience a slower rise in the risk, but low testosterone is linked to increased amyloid beta deposition. And so both are susceptible to Alzheimer's, but women have a little bit of a more unique risk, and we make up about 2/3 of Americans with Alzheimer's. So of all the Alzheimer's population, 2/3 are women, and a lot of that has to do with the loss of our estrogen at midlife. That is a protective part of our brain. It protects our brain from all the things. We lose our BDNF from the estrogen. We lose our telomerase activity. All of those things kind of contribute to that, all due to our lack of estrogen that occurs during menopause. So for men, the risk rises later, but progression is often faster once your symptoms occur. So we get more of that. We see it sooner. We definitely see it sooner, but when men start to see it, the decline is rapid. So what is the common thread between men and women? It's the hormonal decline that disrupts mitochondrial function. It promotes inflammation. It impacts the brain's ability to clear toxic proteins. So huge impacts. The hormone balance is important for us both, men and women. So let's talk about what does hormone balance look like? Some of you out there might be saying, I have no idea because I've never had balanced hormones. I've heard that before in my practice. I've heard that among my friends. So I'm sorry if that's how you feel, because that's a miserable place to start. But let's talk about what it should look like. Women are supposed to have estradiol levels of around 60 to 150 pg per mLs. Okay, that level shows a neuroprotective effect on the brain, while progesterone levels should be around 2 to 4 nanograms per milliliter in the luteal phase, your last half of your cycle, which provides that nice GABA support. Okay, and even though these numbers look bigger, the reality is that progesterone is higher in the body. Okay, PG versus NG is the difference. Okay, so we do have more progesterone than we do estrogen. That helps us stay in balance so that we don't feel crazy. Okay, but these are the ranges we're looking for, and in those ranges we have good neuroprotective effects. We have nice GABA support of our brain. With men, the upper level of normal is around 700 to 900 nanograms per deciliter for total testosterone, and that level supports great cognition. And men are actually supposed to have a little bit of estradiol as well, about 20 to 30 picograms per milliliter, which is hello, did you know men are supposed to have a little bit of estrogen? I think the problem is today we have men who have excessive estrogen, thank you, pesticides. And so that level, that estradiol level around 20 to 30 in men actually maintains a good, healthy the synaptic health between the nervous neurons. Okay, that means the way they communicate with each other, in between each other. That keeps those synapses firing nice and healthy without lots of extra inflammation. So balance isn't about hitting, though, this magic number. It's really about the ratios. Too little, too much of one hormone can create trouble and deficiency. And this is why personalized testing and retesting matters. Working with someone who understands how to evaluate your hormones based on even symptoms, that can be a very helpful thing. So lots to say there, but we'll stop with that. Hey guys, I wanted to pop in, interrupt our podcast to encourage you guys and let you guys know, if you didn't know, our book is available. Stephen's story about his struggle through Lyme disease. Our book, Kids Get Lyme Disease Too, One Boy's Journey of Trusting God Through Lyme Disease. It is available on all areas that you can get books, everything from Amazon to Barnes & Noble to everywhere in between. All the places that you pick up books, you can pick up our book. So please support us and get the word out. If you have a child that's struggling, it doesn't have to be Lyme. I know so many children who just feel weird because their health doesn't match that of their peers, and they feel isolated, they feel unseen, frustrated, and alone. This book is meant to encourage those children. It's meant to encourage you parents that you can get through it. It's meant to make you feel seen and heard and give you hope. So please pick up our book. Thank you so much for supporting our podcast and all the things that we do. You can see it's an ever emerging thing. I'm changing my studio. Today I'm wearing scrubs because this is the only time I've had to record, and I'm doing the best we can. And I appreciate that you guys are here with me at the root level, at the ground floor, as I'm trying to get information out to you guys that is valuable and hopefully life-changing, starting with the book. So pick up the book wherever you can pick up books, and thank you in advance for all your support. So how do we achieve natural hormone balance? How do we get there naturally? So let's talk about the lifestyle, right? BDNF. What's the number one way we boost BDNF? We boost it by giving your body movement. Let's get the body moving, exercising. So resistance training actually raises IGF-1 and testosterone, both which protect the neurons. Okay. Huge impact by resistance training. Should every woman do resistance training after 40? Yes. Okay. Yes. Okay. Omega-3 fatty acids in your diet, healthy omega-3s that balance out those 6s, your olive oils, your fish, and your supplements, they lower interleukin-6, which is a huge inflammatory problem. And that means that we boost neurogenesis in the hippocampus. Fancy word for boost the production of new neurons being created in the hippocampus, where our memory centers are. Adequate sleep. Here we are again. Work out, eat good, sleep. Okay. Adequate sleep increases your growth hormone, and it gives your body a chance for the DNA to repair from your oxidative stress of the day. So you need adequate sleep. And I know that some of you are out there going, I just can't. I had worked this kind of life. I know what you mean. I've been there. I am not tooting here, and I'm not like bragging or anything. I'm not trying to give you an excessive goal to shoot for, and I hope my life is not always like this. But right now, I work a full-time job in the operating room. I work feels like a full-time job doing podcasting and meeting with clients and research. And I am writing a book, and I still have children in grade school, and I have one in high school, and I have two that still live with me that are adults. They're working their way out. And I'm still a wife, and I still manage, not perfectly, but to work out, and I prioritize my sleep. I will sleep before I work out. So I will go to bed on time. I will get up or kind of early and get the sunrise in my eyes, I will get that done. If I can do it. Now, I do have help. I have a great, amazing partner in life, my husband, who helps. He's on board with our lifestyle. So it's not that I'm doing this all alone. So I don't think I know that I couldn't. I know that I couldn't do all this if I did not have that amazing man. So I'm not giving you crazy goals to shoot for here. Don't be me. My point is that I will miss a deadline in order to sleep. And I'm asking you to do the same kind of goal setting with your sleep. Miss a deadline in order to sleep, because it's that important. Okay. So what about supplements? How do we incorporate smart supplementation into like this lifestyle? And there are a couple of products. If you listen to our last podcast, we talked about inflammation, and there's some really powerful products that you can use, that you can reach for, that are very helpful, reducing that chronic load of inflammation that gets kind of turned on with aging. Of course, you need to help get your hormones in balance. Now, is there a broad brush answer for how we do that? No. I'm going to go with this. Here's what I'm going to give you for this, and then we'll hit the supplements. If you want to balance your hormones, and I'm going to start with our men and women under the age of 30, you need to detox, you need to eat clean, you need to work out, and you need to sleep. Those are your big priorities. If your hormones are already a wreck, you have polycystic ovarian syndrome, you have insulin, you have these things that you're struggling with, that is specialty work that needs to be addressed appropriately. Especially because if you're already set up there, you're already set up in a system of inflammaging. You're aging more rapidly at 20 than most people do at 40 if you're dealing with those type of hormone imbalances at 20. Okay? Very important. You have to address your gut, and you have to detox. Okay? If you're 30 to 50, let's start with our women. All of that I just said above for the kids. Sorry kids, 20 to 30. Everything I said for 20 to 30 applies to you as well. Detox gut health, eat clean, prioritize sleep. But now we need to be looking at additional liver support. Your liver is starting to have to do more work because of the shifts that are happening in your progesterone, women. Okay. I want to talk about wild yams because I get this question a lot, and when it comes to balancing hormones. Well, I've heard wild yams are good for me. Barbara, what's her name? That's super popular on Instagram, says wild yams are good for progesterone. Well, I hate to blow the bubble or burst the bubble there, but wild yams are not consistent as a source to be broken down in the body into a consistent level of progesterone. It's not a good choice. It's not enough to support healthier progesterone levels. Things like chasteberry will help your receptor expression, so you can add that in. And then I would, if I'm closing and getting closer to my age of perimenopause, the later, and you're approaching like 38, 39, 40, that type of age range, and your hormones are starting to shift, I would really consider reaching out to someone who works with bioidentical hormones and starting that process of supporting your hormones early. Studies show that when you give your hormones the balance as they're shifting through that rapid stage of menopause and perimenopause, that you have the best outcomes on your brain, the best outcomes for protecting your brain against dementia. When we go through perimenopause, ladies, we lose our progesterone first, and our estrogen doesn't just do this decline, just kind of like this, hello people, I'm listen on the podcast who are not watching me here. I'm showing a graph of slow, nice, smooth decline, like a nice sledding hill, right? It doesn't do that. It does this wild yo-yo thing, up and down, up and down, up and down as it's going down. So instead of a nice sledding hill, now we've got a sledding hill that threw a roller coaster on it, or a mountain coaster. It goes up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down as it declines. So one day you're feeling crazy and insane, the next day you're feeling sad and depressed and moody, and the next day you're having hot flashes, and the next day you're super depressed. And it really can swing that wildly as you get closer and closer to menopause. While, by the way, progesterone has lost its dominance in your life and it's now shifted down. And so that means we're gaining weight, we're irritable, we're cranky, we're ruminating too much about everything, we're anxious. Okay. I could list the many, many things that happen when our hormones do that wild swing in perimenopause. It's probably the most disruptive time of our life. So what do? Support your liver. Absolutely make sure you have your B vitamins on board and get some chasteberry and talk to your practitioner about bioidentical hormones and start working them in strategically. That should be a slow, smooth transition. You shouldn't be getting a testosterone pellet and straight up estradiol, at 35 years old. And if they are not giving you progesterone, I'm just giving this as a free suggestions for you to be empowered. I'm not giving any medical advice here at all. But if you do not get progesterone when you're 35 and you go see someone for bioidentical hormones and they just give you estrogen and testosterone, find another practitioner. And that's all I have to say about that. Okay, so now we're in men. What do we do in men for our testosterone in that age range, 30 to 50? Well, the best thing you can do to boost your testosterone are actually those really advanced lifestyle techniques. So this is not true, women. I'm not asking you to do this. I'm asking the men to do this. Everything I said for the 20-year-olds apply. You detox, you support your gut health, you sleep, and you work out. Well, now you continue to work out. You really make sure that you maintain weightlifting as a thing. Men sometimes get a little lazy about it, just like us women do. So definitely maintain your workout routines, as well as some cardiovascular health. Make sure you're getting some cardiovascular exercise. But you guys benefit a lot from the cold plunges, where women in this stage, we don't. We can do a little bit of cold plunge but we don't actually do as well when we do a ton of cold plunges in that stage of perimenopause. It's fine in the 20s and it's actually okay in menopause, but in this stage, we end up getting a little bit too much stress hormone release from that biohacking tool. Okay, so men, you guys do really well with that. You guys would really benefit from the infrared saunas. Women would too. That's actually a true story for women, but men benefit a lot from those infrared saunas, and they also benefit from the liver support. And the number one thing I would say is that they need to check your toxins, because men are really sensitive to these estrogen-like receptor hormones that come in the estrogen-like pesticides. They look like hormones. Okay, so those are the big things. There are several products that you can also take that boost growth hormone, but I'd rather let you talk to your practitioner about those type of things. So what can we do about the inflammaging, and what can we do to protect our brain? When it comes to inflammaging, we've talked about SPMs, already talked about how you use those. They're really helpful for kind of shutting down that system and reducing the inflammation, and really turning it off. Resveratrol, which we also have talked about in other episodes, but maybe not from this angle. Resveratrol, though it's a powerful antioxidant, it activates something called sirtuins. Sirtuins extend telomeres. And they improve your mitochondrial efficiency. So they impact telomerase, and they make your telomeres longer. So that's a natural side effect of resveratrol. And then there is a product called spermidine, and that we'll go into that more in another episode, but it promotes autophagy, which is a really important piece of your cell's recycling system, and that helps clear damaged proteins and neurons. Now, autophagy. Let's talk about that a little bit because that's a huge piece. How do we enhance our healthy autophagy? I'm not going to go into a crazy amount of information here, but I just want to talk about the best way to really promote healthy autophagy. There are some caveats, so pay attention to those, but the best way is actually prolonged fasting. Men, you guys can do it without worrying about a thing. Women, go get the book Fast Like a Girl. Okay. She kind of gives us the information about when is the best time to fast and when is not the best time to fast. And a hint is you don't fast when your body's already in a high stress and cortisol response. So there's parts of your cycle when that happens, and you do not fast in that time. But women, we benefit from fasting very, very much. It renews our total gut health. One of my favorite forms of fasting is a fasting mimicking diet, which allows you to trick your body into believing it's fasting over 5 days. And so you actually go into full-blown autophagy for 48 hours because you don't hit autophagy until you have actually fasted for 3 full days. No, 24 hours does not give you autophagy. It takes 3 full days before you hit autophagy. So when you do a fasting mimicking diet, you can stretch that to 5 days. Your body thinks it's fasting. You're still eating a little, and you're eating strategically, but you are still hitting autophagy. It's a beautiful way, and it's a lot more tolerable for especially women who during this time of perimenopause will see ups and down swings in their hormones, and get this crazy surge of cortisol as well as a result of that. Another couple of things that you can do are sauna, and I touched on that a little bit, and I will do a full episode. I think I'm going to bring somebody on to talk about sauna because I love infrared saunas. They are amazing. I highly recommend everyone get one. I have a link where you can get a significant discount. I think it's like $400 off of a sauna, and they make plenty of them now today that fit in any home. You can have an 1,800 square foot home. It'll fit in there, I promise. So, consider it because the research on infrared sauna is dramatic. It is impressive. So sauna at least 4 to 7 times per week, infrared sauna has been linked to a 65% reduction in risk of Alzheimer's. That's according to studies done in Finland. That is an insane reduction. So now you balance your hormones and you get in the sauna. I think you've protected your brain pretty awesome. I think my job is done here. I'm just kidding. But polyphenols, like blueberries, are also a powerful way to really protect your blood-brain barrier and activate the NRF2 pathway, which boosts the antioxidant defenses of your brain. So these are really great, really easy tools to use. So when you combine hormone balance, inflammation resolution, nutrient-dense living, you can reverse the measurable markers of aging. Right? This is not hype. This is all science-backed. Like, there's so much research here. This is really what's happening when you change the inputs that drive your biology. That's all I have to say. Okay, you just have to change the inputs that drive your biology. I do like to say our body is like the genes are like the hardware, but nothing. Your hardware on your computer does nothing. The computer is totally useless to you if you don't have software driving it, and the software is your lifestyle and the inputs you put into your body and your biology. So, midlife does not have to mean inflammaging and rapid decline. It does not need to mean that. When your hormones shift, your brain does not have to burn if you take action. So test, rebalance, nourish your body, resolve the inflammation. Your brain and your body will thank you for decades. And quite frankly, so will your budget. If you've spent all your whole life saving up for your retirement, and in retirement you lose your brain function, it is a tragedy. Because now you're spending all your money on brain care, on home support because you can't care for yourself. Nobody wants that. I don't want that for you. And we can avoid that if we do just the small things. So if today's episode resonated with you, share it with a friend. who could use a little bit of hope. And if you haven't come yet, come join me on Instagram at Beyond Brain Health. I'm also on TikTok at Dr. Sande, Sande. So we can keep the conversation going there. And until next time, I want you to stay curious, stay grounded, and stay empowered.